I'd been the company director for 12 years, up to 2017, 18, 19, due to financial abuse and being left in poverty, literally fighting to survive, then picking life back up to try and get freelance work again in the industry that I loved and knew. Overnight, when the pandemic hit, that was it. Everything had gone again. No money, no work, nothing, just looking into an empty void. No savings. I had no savings, no backup, nothing. And a mortgage and a child at home. Because I was a new freelance, classed as freelance, but limited company director, as in me as a sole person, it was nothing. It was literally nothing, no help. I had been on universal credit for a while due to low income, which was about £500 a month. To be able to pay my bills a month, nearly £2,000. Going back down to £500, it was just like, what the heck? What did we do now? And there was no answers. I was on groups of people who had nothing. And all of us literally started chipping in. If we had £5, we'd all put £5 into a pot so that maybe somebody could be sent a voucher for a supermarket. People were crying out for £20, £50, absolutely desperate. People lost their homes. We've all paid our taxes. We've all paid into the system for years. I mean, when I had my company, I employed people. Paid national insurance, paid tax, corporation tax, that. All this money was paid out. And the only one thing we had to look after us in the pandemic was the government. And there was nothing. There was literally nothing. But I've been so busy trying to survive all this time that I'm absolutely exhausted. I feel like a failure as a person because I'm not working in the industry that I love, that my parents put me through college for, that I work so hard to be a part of. I think everything's gone.
During the pandemic, I was very much involved in the day-to-day running of the food bank. We had a lot of older members of the team as volunteers, so we lost a lot of our team overnight, sort of trying to work out how to navigate that, where we were going to get food from. We had people that had lost their jobs, overnight had lost their jobs, and they'd never been in that situation before. They didn't know what to do. And one that stuck with me really was a pub landlord. He was in a really desperate situation. He had, a life. He'd never experienced anything like needing a food bank before. The fact that we were able to help him with food was, a really small thing, but actually there were people like that all up and down the country.
Everything was looking rosy and everything was good. Pubs were growing from strength to strength and production was high. And then Friday, the 20th of March, we get notification that the government announced all pubs was to cease trading. It was quite distressing to see the staff concerned about when are they going to work, how are they getting paid. The furlough scheme that the government came up with was a lifesaver for small companies as we are. We did take some decisions to cut some staff back. Thankfully, 2 staff threw themselves on the swords and took retirement. But we then had to make further redundancies. One of the guys that I've made redundant, I've known him 40 years. And to sit there and say, sorry, you've got to go. It was just dark, really dark. The whole hospitality industry is a very, very fragile industry. Yeah, they had that startup grant we applied for, very easy application. Thankfully, we never used any of it and we handed it all back. It was there in case of dire emergencies, and that was the reason I took it was an interest-free loan. It was better to have it at hand should we need it rather than try and get it at the last minute.
The fact that we were given on many occasions hours to close down and leave the business, otherwise we could get into trouble. I thought they don't understand what it means closing down 3 restaurants with 55 staff, trying to console them, explain to them, apologize to them. And then when it came back, and then the restaurant's not the biggest, it's an 80-seater restaurant, and all these rules came in place, 2-meter rules, screens we had to buy. A lot of the government helped us with some money and some loans and stuff, which we're still paying back now. 3 loans, we're still paying them back. Struggling to pay bills. A lot of suppliers were very, very, very helpful. Some weren't, I don't think they thought it through. I think people just panicked and just started doing what they thought was best. And then we had the summer, we started making money again. But then you're afraid they're going to close you down again. So you're not buying too much food, you're not employing too many people. Had we not had furlough, we'd have just made all our staff redundant or fired them because we couldn't afford to keep them. So we lost business, we lost customers, we lost money, and we lost staff, and the staff didn't come back. The second time when we had to then lay off staff. And you got to decide who to lay off because you can't keep everybody. And that was horrible to sit down and say, guys, I'm sorry. Only so much funding, only so much money left in the kitty, But as an owner, you got hit in so many ways.
I was a freight train driver. And I continued working during the lockdown. I did manage to catch COVID in May 2020. And then it just triggered what is called post-COVID ME. And since then, I've been unwell and I'm unable to work. I did get some money related to the COVID. My employer got it for me, I think. They kept me on for a very long time. But then after a while, they realised that I wasn't improving, so they made me speak with a medical advisor. And he suggested they take away my job. If I found a cure, I'd be straight back to work. I love my job, so I'd be happy to go back to it if they would take me.
I have no shame in admitting that I receive disability living allowance. I'll always be grateful for the financial help that a lot of people got during COVID, and that was really helpful, but it took no account of people's individual circumstances. When we talked about financial help, we talked about the employment schemes, we talked about furlough, we talked about all of these things, but nobody thought about what about the people who aren't working? What about the people who use benefits day to day, but their circumstances have suddenly changed and now that support isn't quite enough? What do we do then? And so finances is something that we need to think about as a country. We need to look back on it. We can't just talk about the cost of living crisis now, because I'll tell you something, we had a cost of living crisis back then.
We had a flurry of emails, phone calls from clients basically stopping their services with us. Or we were working with restaurants, we were working with estate agents, we were working with commercial property agents. They didn't have businesses anymore. It's put the fear of God into us. It scared us. This is our business, gone. I'm a single dad. I've got responsibilities, financial responsibilities. I've got a mortgage, I've got loans. And then, of course, your thoughts turn to our employee. And she was on the phone a lot, what's going on? And we didn't know. We genuinely didn't know. You're having stuff coming from the UK government, stuff coming from the Welsh government. By putting her onto the furlough scheme, it did help us a lot because I think it was 80% of her salary was covered. And she was just thankful to keep her job. I do remember the councils made us all aware of the business grants that had become available. And I have to say, the application process for that was really easy, really straightforward. And before we knew it, we had some money coming into the bank account. We used the business bounce back loan as well. A very straightforward application process. The decision was made quickly as well. We had that. It just provide you a little bit peace of mind, I suppose. It gave us a little bit of a safety net. Should the bounce back not have been so good for us, we had something there just to keep us going a little bit.
We had the best January at work ever for the t-shirt printing, and the phone stopped ringing, email stopped coming through, and at that time of year, it's kind of the start of event season, and there was roughly 3 people helping out most days at the office. And he just went to, nothing, no work on him. So we just, hunkered down and, lived this very simple life. The COVID loans and those bits and pieces came in really well, and they helped a lot. The bounce back loans, we just put the money into the bank. And I know a lot of people spent them straight away. We went from an office, the woman was really helped us out, and she didn't charge any rent whilst COVID was going on. Towards the second year, she charged us half rent, but by that time, we realised that we could actually do what we needed to do from home. So we moved the operation to the house, It just operates on the spare bedroom now. So very small t-shirt printing.
A lot of the work that I had lined up was postponed at the time. Jobs slowly started to open back up, so the odd job would happen. Everything was very uncertain. And I'm someone that doesn't usually deal well with uncertainty. I like to kind of be organised and plan things. So yeah, it was the odd job that got me through, but my focus wasn't, I guess, making money. It was more, how am I going to keep doing what I love and perform? The self-employed SCIS grant. So I remember there was a whole process of not knowing which one to apply. Loads of people were trying to apply for different pots of funding. Unfortunately, I was eligible for that one. I think that's also why, I guess, financially, I was thinking I'm okay. I'm moving back home and I was with family and staying with a friend, so I didn't have to worry too much about the finances, because some of the loans you had to pay back. And I know some people then were struggling to even pay things back. I did try applying for, I think, universal credit, and it was so complicated for me to explain what it is I do and that I'm a bit freelance, but I have these other forms of income, that in the end I just gave up. I said, there's no point me even applying for this. I had that grant and I said that will just have to do for now, and I'll try and get some other freelance work if and when we're able to do that. As the creative industry, it was the one that you couldn't prepare for the most, because there's so many freelancers in that business and you rely so much on freelance jobs. I know some people, like I said, had to get jobs in completely different industries just to survive.
I'll start by saying I employ 7 people through direct payments and the Independent Living Fund. When COVID started, I had a couple of care companies in doing small calls, 15 minutes. I had issues with staff washing their hands. If they weren't washing their hands to start with, how were they going to manage with a much more serious and deadly infection? I cancelled both of those agencies, and my own staff started picking up those bits of work. So money was a big issue. Just making sure I was safe and my workers were safe. It was quite a bit of additional cost. But I have to say the health service, and particularly independent living service, kicked into play and got me through that. It would have been a real problem if the money hadn't been there, because I wouldn't have been able to look after myself properly at all. We can plan for things that make it easier in future, and we should learn from this, because I think it would be a travesty and a tragedy if we let it go and don't learn.
So we kind of became a source of information and advice, particularly because the rules kept changing. What we were dealing with was so much uncertainty. And I think people find uncertainty hard, but when it's in your working life, your personal life, it's global, that's everything together. That's really, really difficult. Very quickly, the government in Scotland put out £70 million made it available for the sector. We were asked to distribute that, and we had a long weekend. It was to make it really accessible and to take away all of the nonsense that you usually have to do in applying for grants, but keep it robust. So it was get it out quick, but make sure you weren't giving it to some dodgy character, because even then there was scammers trying to access that kind of money. But it was absolutely a lifeline for organisations out in the sector. Before we were in the building that I'm sitting in now, we were in a very historic building. We were the overall leaseholder, and it was a church. The upper floor, the nave, is used for big corporate events, weddings, and we got commission from those, and that completely stopped. And we had to keep it heated at a specific temperature throughout lockdown, so the murals weren't destroyed. So we still had the outgoings on energy, despite having no income.
I'd left the army in 2010, set up my own business, and I became a self-employed pet sitter. And I loved my job, absolutely loved it. And I remember saying goodbye to the people. See you in a couple of weeks, I said. It never came back. We were told about the SCIS, where you could go online and claim some money. I truly believed that we would be looked after. And I put it in, my in the computer, and it just said, you're not entitled. Why am I not entitled? I'm self-employed. This is what you're telling me. I should be able to get some kind of financial help just during this period. And I didn't get anything. I couldn't sign on because I have an army pension. The army pension wasn't index linked, so it was only a few £100. My particular reason for not getting it was the 50% rule. The 50% rule means you had to have 50% of your self-employment to be able to actually claim. Mine was 48%. 52% was my army pension. That's why I didn't get any help. That I do not understand. It became really, really intense, and it got to a stage where I eventually decided I didn't want to be here anymore. I managed to reach out to the people that help you, and they helped me through that, and they brought me back to some kind of normality. And so I eventually just decided to get on with it and try and help the community, try and bring some good into this awful COVID business. We basically provided all this food to these people that were struggling, and all my savings went. I haven't got any savings now. I've never recovered, and you can tell in my voice, you know, I'm still affected, and I don't know if I'll ever get over it, but I'm living with it, and that's what I'm going to do. People like me, who's done 22 years for their country, are proud people. We don't ask for help. We are the ones that help others. I just think it should be more fair.
Suddenly your livelihood is taken away from you. You lose your self-esteem. You lose your dignity. You kind of feel embarrassed because you can't provide for your family in the way that you want to. You were sort of imprisoned in your own place with no form of income. And then there's a whole load of uncertainty with everybody else that's panicking, that's your customers. What do we do? It was devastating. And then you started seeing the reports of people losing their businesses, losing their homes, and taking their lives. It was, in a word, haunting. For me, because as a limited company director, the majority of your salary is made up through dividends. Whilst the government recognises dividends in a way that they can tax you on them, they didn't recognise it as a way of an income. We're a family of 4. We had 2 teenage children. I was receiving money that was less than my mortgage each month. Now, if I'd have been self-employed, because I know many other photographers that are self-employed, they got 80% of their average wage for the previous 3 years. Where's the fairness in that? The amount of online abuse I received, telling me how I'm a tax dodger, I'm this, that, and the other, I'm scum of the earth, and I don't deserve anything. I pay more taxes than everybody else because I pay corporation tax, I pay national insurance, I pay company national insurance. I don't tax dodge. I work in the system that was set up for us. And I mean, I even had family members that didn't understand my situation. You know, there'd be debates and division in the family. You were just beaten down. Everywhere you turned, you were just beaten down because there was no support. For people like me, there was just no support.
We've been told that we have to close our businesses and stop working, and yet we have no other financial means coming in. A lot of us didn't qualify for universal credit. The financial situation for a lot of people, their finances have been decimated. All their savings have gone. They've cashed in their pensions. They have maxed out their overdrafts, their credit cards. Obviously, there were bounce back loans on offer. However, they were only offered to people who had been trading for over 2 years. So people started selling their cars, their houses, their family heirlooms. We had people selling their wedding rings, talking to people that had resorted to prostitution. We had parents that, parents who skip meals so they could feed their children. Absolutely devastating. People at a time when they were scared anyway because there was this invisible virus, they were petrified financially as well. So they were getting pressure, financial, emotional, mental health issues all around them. Also, we had a lot of members whose family members or friends went into hospital with COVID, a lot of whom died of COVID, and a lot of people imploded. So I remember the first attempted suicide for the rest of my life. I took the call. I kept him on the phone for 4 hours, trying to convince him that taking his own life, it wasn't going to enrich anybody else's life at all. It wasn't the way to solve a problem. We've got people who are, they've been made bankrupt. They've lost their businesses. We've got a lot of marital breakups, couples breaking up because of the stress. I don't want anyone to feel that they've been left on their own. So until the last person has got back on their feet, we will carry on doing what we're doing.